Hello, hello. Welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your host, Liam Crow. And today's interview, we have Jose
Contreras.
Contreras. So, let's see. Let's start with how old are you and where are you from?
I am 40 and I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Are you like originally from Dallas, or kind of a transplant?
Well, I was born in Plano
Ah,
and then grew up in Carrollton, but I've spent the greater part of my life in Dallas.
fair enough. I guess the Metroplex is kind of all Dallas, so
Right.
fair. What was your DOC, if I may ask?
It was alcohol for me.
I can feel that. Same here. It's not a fun one. It's socially acceptable, but not fun.
Right.
Um, and how long would you say you were in active addiction?
I would probably say that I was in my active addiction for about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Sounds about right for me too.
Yeah.
So, real quick, do you got any like stories that had a good ending, or is addiction just a bunch of doom and gloom on your behalf?
For me is pretty doom and gloom.
Doom and gloom.
I don't think there was ever any time that I drank that I actually had a positive end result.
uh, did it start off kind of fun for you, or was it an escape from reality?
It actually started pretty fun for me. I was in a fraternity in college and did all the social normal things. But then whenever I graduated college and got into my first job, um, I started to drink more and um, more days of the week,
Mm.
and then those more days of the week ended up every day, etc. So um, that's kind of how it was for me.
Okay. Um, do you think that alcohol would be considered a gateway drug for you, or did it lead to anything else? I
Uh,
guess.
for me, it didn't because alcohol
Really?
was it for me.
Huh.
I never messed with any kind of other drugs, so
Ah. Well, I'd say you're lucky, but that's really good to hear. Sucks to hear that it was 10 years, but uh, do you see your addiction having been more of a blessing in recovery, or do you think there's still some things you would go back and change entirely?
I think it was more. At first, I used to think it was like a curse,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I would be where I am professionally and in life and at peace with myself if I wouldn't have gone through everything that I've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
which had to deal with alcohol.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're in Oxford Housing. You play a pivotal role in Oxford House in Chapter 4. Could you tell me? I mean, I know, but for the listeners and stuff, could you say what Oxford is and like what it means to you as an individual?
Sure. So Oxford is a democratically run, self-supporting, sober living organization. Um, every house is unique
Mm-hmm.
that is in Oxford. We all follow the same model, but there's variations with every house, which that's the unique part about Oxford. So there's a fit for pretty much everyone. Um, and specifically, um, it's a game changer. It's I've seen it do some amazing things for so many people and for myself. Um, but it's just such a beautiful thing that if you put in the work in your own program of recovery and then also what you're supposed to do in Oxford, I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's just a game changer. It it does some amazing things.
I'd have to agree, and thank you for the insight.
Yeah.
Um, so whenever you first got sober, were you immediately in with Oxford, or what did your walk of or the first steps of your recovery kind of look like?
So yeah, absolutely. When I first got sober in 2018, I knew that I needed to go somewhere that was not home.
Mhm.
So I took all the steps necessary for me to get into Oxford and got right in.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way it's been ever since. I did unfortunately have a relapse back
Mhm.
in 2021, but I got straight into treatment and also went straight into Oxford, and that's where I'm in the house that we're in together.
Uh-huh. Okay. Um, so would you say that with Oxford being so prominent for you, would you say that it's a necessary part of your recovery, or do you kind of see it as like a not a substitute, but a supplement for everything else that you do in recovery?
I think that it's a supplement, but it's also necessary for me.
Okay.
Um, if that makes any kind of sense.
Mhm.
Because I work my program, I work with my sponsor, I have a sponsee, and just being of service to Oxford, it just takes me out of myself and
Mhm.
allows me to do good for others,
Okay.
and to kind of put my own little spiel on what Oxford is
Mhm.
and get everyone excited for it.
Okay. Would you say that being involved in Oxford is kind of like an evolution of the 12th step for you? So it's not really like sponsoring, but it's still carrying the message and helping out guys in need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like, like you're saying, an extension of the 12th step, and just allows you to reach much more
Mhm.
than you would in your home group or any group that you might visit.
Okay. Um so let's get back to the alcoholism part.
Mhm.
Whenever you first started getting sober, was it difficult for you to, like, say, go to a gas station or Walmart in the beer or wine aisle? Did you have things that really sit there and kind of pull at you, or did you kind of just like white knuckle it, or what did you do to help yourself in the first bit of recovery?
Actually, I never have had a problem.
Okay.
It's like I hit my rock bottom,
Mm-hmm.
knew that I needed help, and took the steps necessary. And I mean, I was a server when I first got into recovery
Oh.
and worked around alcohol, so it was never a temptation.
Okay.
On the contrary, it kind of made me sick.
Um, I've always found it kind of funny how some people can be alcoholics but still be a bartender. I'm almost like, that's got to be like either iron willpower or their higher powers doing wonders in their life outside of work.
Right.
um, so whenever I've heard addicts compare drug of choices and rock bottoms. In my opinion, that's something to not do. I feel as if it's more important to find the common ground and actually build from there and not try to belittle each other, because I've heard people say, well, at least I didn't put a needle in my arm. And other people said, well, at least I actually had a job and stuff like that. What's your take on uh, situations like that?
To me, it's all the same. I mean, just because someone put a needle in their arm doesn't make it any different than me opening the bottle and taking a drink. We're gonna end up in the same place,
hmm
in the same kind of trouble, with the same kind of consequences.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I first heard that while I was at the Mina Nehemiah. and someone interjected with, "Look at where you're both at. We're in a
Right.
South Dallas rehab. Like
Right.
no one's better than another here."
It's true.
I would have to agree. Um, so tell me, do you have any long-term goals or short-term goals that you're kind of looking forward to?
Yes. So, um, I'm an interior designer,
Mhm.
and right now I work for a pretty prominent firm. Um, but I'm still building a name for myself.
Mhm.
A long-term goal would to be on my own
Okay.
and to have my own firm with my own clients, and I guess that would be long term. Short term is um I feel that within the next 2 to 3 years I'd like to be a homeowner.
Okay.
Um and that doesn't mean that I would like to do it on my own. My
Mhm.
goal is to take one of the good friends and relationships that I've built in Oxford
Mhm.
and bring that along with me
Okay.
as, a companion, roommate,
Mhm.
in my, in my home, so that I have that extra accountability, because I
Mhm.
know where uh, being on my own will get me,
Yeah.
where the loneliness will get me. So
Fair enough.
that's those are my goals.
It's always good to have an accountability buddy.
Right.
uh, I like those goals, and I think that's something everyone should aspire to. Do you feel that it is absolutely necessary for you to have not you feel it's necessary to not be in your own head? As in like whenever you're there, do you find solitude and peace, or is it always kind of like a hurricane in there
For me, it's a hurricane
all the time?
all the time. So I try to meditate and pray and get myself out of my head
Mhm.
and keep myself busy. Whether that's being of service, taking a phone call for a friend,
Mhm.
watching one of my favorite influencers on YouTube. Uh, but yeah, I don't like being in my head, because being in my head is probably what's gotten me to some pretty sticky situations.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing what's one of the no feel good stories? The one that had the biggest lesson for you to learn.
Huh. I mean, they're
There's a
all
lot.
equally so bad. Um, and you're wanting to know something that had that's
Some kind of like lesson at the end of it, because I know for some of us it was like a pattern that repeated until we got
Mhm.
it right, and then for others it was like, oh hey, well that was new. I'm not doing that again. Uh, anything like that?
I would say right before I got sober in 2018, I just was so in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I couldn't live the way I was living anymore. I had the luxury apartment in, you know, uh, a nice area in Dallas, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So I decided that it would be a good idea to break my lease.
Ooh.
Yeah, leave. I think it was like a month and a half before the lease was up,
Oh.
and go to an extended stay motel.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, um, needless to say, that decision is kind of what catapulted me getting sober,
Okay.
because after about 2 weeks of living in that misery, having like all kinds of drug deals and
Mm.
sketchy situations going on around me,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I had to stop. So, um, one evening I decided that enough wasn't enough, and I threw away what I had of my bottle and let myself start going to DTs.
Mm.
Um, Packed up all my stuff during that process. Took my like two suitcases and stood outside and called 911.
Oh wow.
Um, and you know that kind of crappy situation and that bad decision of breaking my lease and all those
Mm-hmm.
consequences turned into kind of the best thing that could ever happen, because yes, I ended up in the hospital in ICU for like a week.
Oof.
um it kind of was a blessing in disguise,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember the day I was getting discharged, I had burnt all my bridges. No one wanted to be my friend. My family was done with me.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, my mom called me like 2 hours before I was getting discharged. And when I was getting
Mm.
discharged, I knew that I needed to go to rehab. But I had no money,
Uh-huh.
didn't know how I was gonna get there. I was in the hospital, like in Carrollton,
Oh.
and the only place that I knew that might take me was Turtle Creek, which was downtown, and I didn't know how I was gonna get there.
Uh-huh.
And so out of nowhere, my mom calls me and she's like, "Hey, I know that you're in the hospital. When do you get discharged?" And I told her, and she was like, "Listen, I know I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble if your dad ever found out, but I'm
Mm.
gonna sneak you into the house and you're gonna spend the night in the house in your grandma's room, and we'll get up at like 4 in the morning and take you to rehab."
Oh wow.
And it happened exactly like that. And I mean, it's the best thing that ever happened. That's why I'm always so grateful and so thankful for my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I have that relationship with my mom now, because if it wouldn't have been for her, I might be homeless, or God knows what would have been of me.
Yeah. That's quite a story.
Yeah,
Seems like your higher power definitely works in ways that were perfectly timed.
right.
And you gotta love mothers. I think they're some of the only people that really give unconditional love.
Yeah,
Um, and so that's good that you have a relationship back with her. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually get a lot of her cooking too, don't you?
I do. I do.
uh, so what's your favorite dish then?
My favorite dish that my mom makes is probably her lasagna.
Lasagna.
It's really good.
Never would have thought lasagna.
My mom knows to cook anything.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So on your uh earlier steps of recovery, what were some of the bigger challenges for you? Was it like uh well, of course, being in Turtle Creek, but was it something that was all external forces, such as like needing a job or having a bad day at work? Or what was it that kind of pushed you out of the first step? Like, biggest obstacles?
To me, they weren't the uh any of the outside obstacles. All of what were the biggest things for me were all internal,
Okay.
and things that I needed to work on, um things that I would get frustrated about, why I couldn't get past some things,
Mm-hmm.
um why I couldn't fully let go and let God take over.
Mm-hmm.
Um those were some of my biggest struggles.
Okay.
But, I had an amazing sponsor that, got me to see things in a different way. And, you know, uh, by trusting in my higher power, I got through it.
Okay. Um, so with your sponsor, what step would you say is the hardest one for you? Because most people say it's like 4 and 5. For me, I found 9 to be kind of difficult.
I would agree with you on 9. Um, because 9 actually will linger for a while, especially if you don't have contact and relationships with some of those people because
Hmm.
of the shit that can I
You're
say
good.
that?
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
Some of the stuff that you've done.
Uh-huh.
So, I would say that that definitely is a lot harder of a step than 4 and 5 because yeah, it might be embarrassing to let someone else know all of your shenanigans, but at the end of the day, it's like a weight comes off of you
Hmm.
that you feel like you can breathe and you feel at peace.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
did you have a lot of those moments where you thought you knew how the amends was going to go, and then it totally did not go that way, either good or bad?
um, I'll have to say that I'm the kind of person that always prepares for the worst.
Ah, anxiety, the best.
Right? So, um I always prepared for the worst, and sometimes I'd say like one or two of them were just as bad, if not worse, than what I
Oh,
thought.
oh
But for the
no.
most part, all the other ones were completely different than what I prepared myself for.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
Uh, how did you know who you needed to make an amends to? My sponsor, he tells me if you're walking down a grocery store aisle and you see someone, if you have to turn around to avoid them, you need to make an amends.
Right.
And
Uh, I would say it was similar for me
okay.
because there were so many people that I did shitty things or said really bad things to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, there was a lot of people that I couldn't quite look in the eye.
Mm.
Um, but um, yeah, I would agree. I would agree with your sponsor.
Yeah, whenever you first said that to me, I was like, "Oh man, like how many store aisles can I like avoid?" And then he said, "How much shopping do you got to do?" And I was like,
Right? Exactly.
um. So let's see. So step 4 and 5 are difficult
Hmm.
for a lot of people because they have to put their resentments down, their sex inventory, and all that. And I've always heard some people having like 60 pages worth of those, and I felt like I didn't have a whole lot. But then my sponsor told me it's okay to not have 60 pages because I'm not going to listen to all of them anyways. And but he said it is important that you get the major ones down. Do you feel like you forgot anything your first time around, or have you redone your step work with your sponsor since you first got sober?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I've been through the steps now 3 times.
Thrice.
Uh, tres veces. Uh, but the first time I thought I was thorough. My
Mm.
sponsor then, which is not the sponsor that I have now,
Uh-huh.
um, I had like two of those like the school notebook journals full.
Oh, whoa.
Right. He didn't listen to all of them. He made me think that I was going to like read all of those things to him,
Mm.
and he didn't. We ended up tossing them over the Lake Louisville Bridge.
So you
Uh,
went and littered?
Pretty much. The hopefully the police are not listening to that.
I don't think they'll really care. They're just going to find a notebook with like, oh, it looks like someone's journal.
Right.
What was symbolic about throwing it over the ledge, or was there symbology behind that? Or
Yeah, because I put it all down.
mm,
I took thought, uh, several weeks thought into everything that I wrote down, and in a sense, it was freeing, um, because the majority of the real important stuff I wrote
mm,
down first,
okay,
and it wasn't like little minute details here and there that I added in afterwards, because my sponsor kept telling me, "Are you sure? You got everything?" And So yeah, I felt a sense of peace
Mm-hmm.
and just being done and over with. But I did forget some things
Mm,
because there is a reason um, that I ended up relapsing in 2021.
mm-hmm.
Some things that I had thought I gotten past and that I had really not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was with my now sponsor that I was able to really address those things and get past, um, those things that are character defects that I work on a regular basis, and that
Okay.
I can now look at myself in the mirror, and I truly like who I see. I may not be perfect, but um, I definitely am okay with the guy that I see in the mirror.
That's good.
Yeah.
I believe self-image is and self-acceptance is huge in recovery.
Hmm.
Because I feel like the term addict and alcoholic is really applicable, especially in early recovery,
Right.
because it helps build a foundation upon which you build your new identity on.
Right.
But you don't have to continuously be that thing because uh, someone once told me, I'm not an alcoholic. Alcoholics go to classes. And so he just said he was just a drunk. And I was like, but isn't that the exact same
Same
thing?
thing. Yeah.
And he was just afraid of the name. And he eventually went to rehab.
Hmm.
Um, but it took him hitting rock bottom to get there. And
Right.
whenever I saw him come out, he had the same outlook you did. Like he was okay with himself. Um, for you, did it take some time to come to terms with like you? Is in like if you go to the gym every day and you look in the mirror, you don't see the progress. But other people,
Right.
was it kind of the same thing for you? You didn't really see the changes and someone else saw it first?
For me, it kind of went like hand in hand because the better that I got at working at myself, the more relationships blossomed, the
Mm.
more that people saw the change in me and
Uh-huh.
that they wanted to be back in my life. Like, my parents, my
Mhm.
siblings. So I think that they went hand in hand for me
Okay.
because um, I knew that if I wasn't putting in the work and if was like stagnant, I could tell
Mm.
because those beautiful things that happen, the promises wouldn't have happened, and to me, they went hand in hand.
Okay. Um, so I had the question. Uh hand in hand. Oh, well, hang on, that train has left the conductor. Um, let's see. What would you say was your hardest character defect to get around?
I think my hardest character defect is being a people pleaser
Ooh.
and learning when to set a boundary and to
Mhm.
say no because it's a complete sentence and it doesn't require an explanation.
No is a complete sentence?
Yes.
Huh. I've never heard of that. I guess it makes sense, so,
Yeah,
um,
try it out.
no. Did I use that sentence right?
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Um, so whenever we talk about some of the harder things to do in recovery, what do you think is the easiest to do? Is it like doing fellowship, keeping in touch with other people? And I just remembered the question I had.
Well, say
Uh,
it before you.
okay, so the question is, as you were getting better and people wanted to get back into your life, was there anyone or a few people that you said, well, you didn't like you pushed me out, so I'm respecting your boundaries. You wanted me out, I'm out. You can't get me
Mhm.
back. Or did you accept everyone that wanted you back in?
I think I accepted everyone that wanted me back in, but I tread lightly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Not walking on eggshells, but just sitting there and just
Yeah.
vigilant.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, what is the easiest part of recovery for you, if there is one?
To me, honestly, the easiest is calling my sponsor
Oh yeah.
because a lot of people they find that so difficult because they don't want to take their
hmm
sponsor's guidance. But for me, uh, I'm completely willing.
Okay.
I listen and I do what I'm told, and I found that it's successful. So I just keep on doing it. I'm not gonna like veer away from what I've been doing and what I know that works.
Okay. Um, so you have a sponsor. Do you have sponsees?
I have one sponsee.
Okay. How do you like doing the 12th step? Because I know for some people they don't ever feel like they're ready for step 12, but it's kind of like, are you waiting to have kids whenever you're absolutely ready? Because if so, it's never going to happen, right?
Right. Well, I mean, you can't keep what you have if you're not
Mm-hmm.
willing to give things away and you
Mm-hmm.
share that experience because I get so much growth in myself, and there are times that I need my sponsee more than I feel like he may need me
Uh,
because it's those phone calls that I get when he's struggling
mm-hmm.
that take me out of my head like we were
Uh-huh.
talking about earlier, and um take me out of myself, and share the guidance that my sponsors shared with me,
Mm-hmm.
and to me that feels really good. So I would say that in the 12 step I don't think that is that difficult.
Fair enough.
Hmm.
I honestly like doing step 12 because it's kind of fun and it kind of shows you again.
Hmm.
I remember talking to one of the guys at Nehemiah, and some of the stuff he said, I was like, man, you got a lot to learn.
Right.
But then I had to sit there and look and was like, oh yeah, I said the same thing.
Right.
So, um, so in recovery, a lot of people say you have to surrender everything. Some people see surrender as being weak. I've come to find, I've come to found, I've come to find out that surrender is both willingness, but also being open while being steadfast at the same time. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So what does surrender mean to you in your recovery?
For me in my recovery, it means give it all,
Give it
surrender
all.
it all.
Okay.
Um,
What
because if I have any part in it, you're gonna have a problem.
is so you can't even give directions to the guy driving?
No, no.
Do you at least ask him, are we there yet?
Um, I practice my patience.
Fair enough. Um, so what would you say is the let me erase that little part.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to friends and family of a addict or alcoholic at this
I think that um I would give them the advice to give someone hard love,
point?
because if I didn't have the hard love, and I know so many of my friends, if they wouldn't have had hard love by
Mm-hmm.
those that love them,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't think that we'd be where we are without that. Because as difficult as it may be that you feel like you're not supported by those that love you,
Mm-hmm.
um, you want to do better, so that those people will see a change in you and they'll
Mm-hmm.
want to be back part of your life. So I would say that you know that's where I stand on that.
Hard love,
Hard love, tough love.
tough love.
Yeah,
And so what would you have to say to the addict or alcoholic themselves?
I would just say you know be open, be open, open,
Okay.
willing, and take the guidance that your sponsor gives you
Okay.
and trust in your higher power, because without all of those things working in unison,
Mm-hmm.
um you're not going to get very far.
Fair enough. Um, what's one thing you wish you'd learned way sooner in recovery?
I think kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier is when to say no,
Okay.
and that enough is enough,
Mm-hmm.
and to set healthy boundaries, because I feel like my downfall and the times that I've gotten in um, the trickiest situations, it's
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't say no.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Kind of like the movie Yes Man. Like I haven't seen it, but I've heard some funny things about it.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess last couple questions.
Mhm.
If you could go back and change everything, like from your childhood or whatever character defect that really started it off, or the
Mhm.
resentment that started it all off, would you go back and try to change it? And if so, how? Or would you let everything play out and just you support yourself as a best friend and not your own worst critic?
I would actually let it play out exactly the same way that it did, because yes, I had a difficult time, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be where I am if I wouldn't have gone through that.
Okay.
And if I was my friend, I would have, you know, um, loved me from a distance,
Mm.
and let me learn and let me hit my bottom,
Okay.
because um, one of our housemates actually says that a lot, that you have to allow someone to hit their bottom,
Mm-hmm.
um, because if you don't, then it's almost a sense of enabling them
Mm-hmm.
and um, kind of neg- what's the word? Um, it's almost like you're not letting them live through something that
Mm.
may be super meaningful for them to live and
Mm-hmm.
for them to learn from, and from most importantly for them to grow from.
Mm-hmm. Experience is the best teacher.
Yes, it
Uh,
is.
even if it's a hard one.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, it's School of Hard Knocks. I mean, I got a pretty thick head, so uh,
Yeah, we all have a master's degree in that.
yeah. I remember someone asked me, "Do you feel like you need to go out and do some more research?" And I was like, "No, I already got a couple degrees. I'm good."
Right.
um. So, last question: what do you think is the absolute most important part for a recovery walk? As in, without this one thing, is it big or is it small, but it is absolutely crucial to get this one part right? What would that be?
Hmm. It's a question. Um,
Because I know a lot of parts play into it, but what is the one thing that is beyond paramount for you?
I would say being of service.
Being of service. So
Being of service,
step
whether
12.
that's to your home group,
Mm-hmm.
um, whether that's to a sober living organization, something that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Without being of service, um, I think that we always have that tendency to go back into self, because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
that's why most of us are, addicts or alcoholics, is because we love being into ourselves. We're
Mm-hmm.
very selfish people.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right. Um. Well, is there any last thing that you want to say, get off your chest? Um. Because there will be a second interview. I'm
okay,
trying to interview everyone at least 2 or 3 times
yep,
because everyone's story is different,
right.
and you can't get it all in just one little bit unless we just want to do like 24 hours. And I don't know if you got the day off tomorrow because I know I don't.
I don't. I don't. Um, I think that one thing that's like really important is to, really put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know sometimes it may seem hard, it may seem tedious. Sometimes it may seem like, oh, I don't want to call my sponsor, or I don't want to do my step work.
Mm-hmm.
But, without that foundation, you can't get to the places that you want to get to. Um, because the second that you try to take control and to do it on your own,
Mm-hmm.
um, and be on your free will, that's when things are going to go right back to where they were, and sometimes worse than that. And I think that I've seen it time and time again, and I think that you and I as housemates has seen that time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that putting in that work is what's going to get you the results.
And it's not easy work, is
No, it's not easy
it?
work, but it's crucial.
Okay, I like that, and I'd have to agree. It is about doing the work.
Yep.
Uh, I've come to find out that recovery is a lot like walking up a down escalator. The moment you stop, you start going down.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, we shall schedule a second interview soon. Until then, I appreciate you and uh wish nothing but the best for your continued walk in recovery.
Thank you. And absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you for being on the show because, well, we've been trying to plan this for a while. So thank you
I'm kind
for
of busy.
yeah. Well, glad we got to do it. And until I see you next time, Don, you can say bye too.
Bye.
Bye.
That was fun.
Yeah.